Hey everybody, Pastor Warren and Pastor Donald back with you again to continue our conversations about Explore God.
Right, in the upcoming series that we're starting on January 13th with sermons and Bible studies.
It's going to be a great time. We hope that you can join us for worship and get connected to a small group. They're forming. We're getting leaders. So that way you can kind of dive into the subject matter and just kind of kick it around and discuss it a little bit. A lot comes out of those kind of discussions, don't they?
Yeah, and this is all that's meant to be. It's just a discussion, not saying that we have all the right answers, because somebody might not have. And if you're one of the leaders, you might not have the right answer, but we can have an open discussion and maybe say, hey, maybe next week we'll come back and talk about that.
Yeah, and a lot of it is based on, your personal experience. And the topic for this week is really right there on it. Like, the topic is, why is there pain and suffering? Or why does God allow pain and suffering? And, people experience that, and how could you tell them they're wrong about their experience of pain and suffering? So that's why it's really important to value what people bring to the conversation and just kind of walk with them a little bit.
I mean, in the video that we'll watch, the one lady that spoke talked about losing her child, an infant. How's there not pain and suffering in that?
Right.
And how can you tell her, well, no, there's no pain and suffering in that time?
Exactly. At the most personal level, a mother having a child that only lived 2.5 hours, and just that moment in time where they knew the baby needed to be taken away. And she kind of talked about how she just said she can't do this anymore, and she cried out to God and said, God, I just can't handle this on my own. And in her testimony, she was saying, I knew he was there. I just knew it. And she couldn't put any more words around it or quote any scripture or anything like this, but just knew it deep in her soul.
Felt his presence.
Yeah, and that really shows how God draws near to those who are in pain and suffering. He's not like a remote God who doesn't care,
It's Psalm like 31, 32, something there where it says God is near the brokenhearted.
Yes.
It doesn't say God is, far away, that you have to face it all on your own, but he is near the brokenhearted.
Yeah, he doesn't look past the afflictions of the afflicted ones. And that's, Pastor, you make a great point. The Psalms really talk a lot about pain and suffering, don't they? And the raw nature of being in the middle of it is really something that the Psalms describe. So if you ever have an opportunity to look at the Psalms, you can do that. You'll find a lot of really meaningful content.
Right, because the authors of the various Psalms are just writing from personal experience and crying out to God for help in some cases.
Yeah. And that goes to one lady in the video said, sometimes us Christians like to package pain and suffering, identify it, and say, okay, you've got time to go through it, but now move on, and we try and come up with the right answer that provides, the silver bullet answer for someone who's going through pain and suffering. And she goes, I really can't stand that about some Christians. But then it goes back to what you just said about the Psalms, just simply crying out or just simply being with someone. And not saying anything, but walking that walk of
ministry
suffering.
Of presence.
Yeah, that presence. You're right.
Because in those times you do feel maybe that you're all alone, that nobody's there, and so having that person sit next to you, whether it is in silence, is still a ministry, and it's still just reassuring that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And for folks who don't know the Lord, who are seeking Him, this is a really popular question, don't you think? Like, why does God allow pain and suffering?
Didn't somebody in the video say this is like the hardest question to answer, one of the biggest questions to answer when it comes to faith? Because, if it's God so loving, why would He send this pain and suffering to somebody?
Yeah. Well, and one of the answers, the one gentleman talked about, the Buddhist answer to pain and suffering is really to say that it's not even there. It's just like, suck it up and move on. And they just it's not even a reality. And he's like, well, how do you tell someone who's going through the midst of pain and suffering that it's not a reality.
Right.
You know, so he goes on and says, well, that's where the Christian answer to pain and suffering is really the best that he was able to find, that it is a reality, and that even in the midst of it, we're not like condemned by God or forsaken by him,
Right.
but he actually is with us.
Right. It
So
reminds me of that poem Footprints, where it's that guy seeing the scenes of his life, and when he only sees the one set, he's like, God, where were you? Why'd you leave me?
yeah,
And God's like, no, my child, that's when I was carrying you.
right. Yeah, sometimes we just don't realize that, right? Like when God is carrying us and taking care of us, we're like the needy child, and we just really don't realize it. But yeah, as you can imagine, pain and suffering comes from our own sinfulness, our own, which results in certain actions that people
Poor
inflict
decisions in a sense.
poor decisions, natural disasters, and like they talk a little bit about, how do you explain natural disasters? And like it started out with the 2004 tsunami, and I remember images of that, like just the water coming in and sweeping away an entire town and people and cars and trucks and boats, and you just go, wow, this is utter devastation, and the after effects. And so those are hard to answer.
But you still see that God hasn't forgotten those people in those times. You look at, the hurricanes that we've seen in our country in the past couple of years, where you do see people rally together to serve and support those people,
Yeah.
those communities. And to me, that's God's hands and feet in action saying, I haven't forgotten about you. Yes, this horrible thing happened, but I still have a plan.
Yeah. God's people do really come and rise up on those occasions, more so than not. And maybe that's a living testimony of the presence of God, like you said, just the ministry of presence. So to help someone walk together or with someone through pain and suffering rather than just let them be. But, well, we hope that you enjoyed our discussion a little bit. We want to wrap it up and just thank you again for tuning in to our little previews of this Explore God video, and the whole series, in fact. But keep tuning in. We'll just keep coming back and updating you with different topics. And as Pastor said, January 13th.
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. So go on exploreGod.com/Chicago, and you'll see all about it. But better yet, you can come to our website. We have a whole page on it at EmmanuelPalatine.org. And there's a form there for you to sign up to participate or to lead. So go to our website, check it out. There's our previous videos that we've done before.
Yep, and the link should be at the end of the video, and maybe I'll change it up this time and actually put it in the description of the video.
Hey, there you go. That'll be fun. Well, hope you have a blessed day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. God bless.